Welcome, everybody. This is A Cup of Coffeyville, where we fill your cup with everything Coffeyville. I'm Ben Brubaker, the city manager and your host. And with me today is Chief Kwin Bromley, our police chief in Coffeyville. We're looking forward to having this conversation. We're going to talk a little bit about some crime statistics and how our officers respond and why, and get into some meaty details. And so with that, Chief Bromley, thank you. I know this isn't always a fun environment to be in, is on camera and talking, but we appreciate you being willing to come out today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. There may be people that watch that don't know who you are. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been at the city and at the PD.
My name is Kwin Bromley. I was born and raised in Coffeyville. Attended all the local schools and graduated, served in the military, came back, joined the police department in the early 1990s. Served in every position in the department and worked my way up to the position I'm currently in, and chief of police. Been with the department now 34 and a half years.
Amazing. Thank you for both your service,
Thank
military and PD. How has the department, the city, changed in that 34 years?
Well, for one, we have embraced technology over the years, in the last 30 years. I mean, when I first started on patrol at nights, we didn't have cell phones. We had a two-way radio. We had an old, early 80s radar in our vehicles. Today's vehicles are equipped with the modern radar systems that have both a front and rear antenna to catch speeders. Laptops, tablets, they're all computerized. There's a lot of electronics in the cars. The cars themselves are electronic. You have to be a NASA engineer to work on them. Yeah. In my day, no cell phones. You had to memorize all the payphones in Coffeyville to be able to call in dispatch. And I know I'm dating myself, but that's how it really changed, to answer your question.
All the payphones, goodness.
Yep.
None of those anymore.
I still remember the numbers.
What, we pulled the last one out last year, or has this been a while?
It's been a while.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Well, so to talk about technology, maybe we can get into 911 dispatch.
Sure.
And how does that work? From the moment I pick up, whether I'm dialing 911 or if I'm dialing a non-emergency, what's the process behind the scenes that then is initiated?
So the police department has the ability to answer all the 911 calls and non-emergency calls for the southern half of Montgomery County. We also answered all the 911 calls for all of Nowata, Oklahoma. We're the only public safety answering point in the state of Kansas that provides services outside the state of Kansas. It's quite an accomplishment. And it was a process, and it involved the governors and attorney generals from both the state of Kansas and the state of Oklahoma. That process is when you dial 911 on your cell phone or your landline phone that is routed to a particular cell phone tower, and it goes to the police department, to our communication center, and the staff is in there that answers both the non-emergency and emergency calls. And they immediately begin doing their protocols to gather the information to process that call.
So they've got protocols. These people are going through a lot of scrutiny in their training to be able to respond to that kind of call. What's that relationship from the calls coming in and then action, whether that be in Nowata County or here in town?
So depending on the nature of the call, depends on the actions that they take. Following their protocols, our dispatchers are all emergency medical and emergency fire trained. It's called EMD and EFD. They ask a particular set of questions to the caller to determine the nature of the call and details of that call. They began immediately typing that information into our computer-aided dispatching system, which then populates into also our records management system And at the same time, if it is a fire-related call or a medical-related call, they are automatically paging out the appropriate agencies to respond to that emergency. If it's a non-emergency call, they still follow similar protocols, but it's on a smaller, less emergent scale.
So they're not, 911 is not just communicating, or the 911 Police Department dispatch is not just communicating with our officers here in Coffeyville.
No, there are 16, I believe there's 16 agencies that our police department provides services for. And that's both on the fire side, the medical side, and the law enforcement side, as well as we are, we are looking at expanding that to Union Pacific Railroad and to other government agencies as well.
Okay. So someone might ask, why is my tax dollars paying for Coffeyville Police Department to go help Nowata County or these other agencies? Are those things covered? Are these other places paying that, or is a Coffeyville resident paying for us to respond that way?
When you pay your phone bill for your cell phone or there are fees listed in there. Some of those fees are outlined specifically for the 911 system. And so those fees are collected by a state entity, and those fees are based on the number of calls. You know, if there were 5,000 calls received, then those fees are calculated, and that money is receipted to the police department, to the city of Coffeyville. So the services that we provide to Nowata County, they are paying for that.
Okay. Let's talk back to Montgomery County here and the agencies you interact with. So you said southern half of Montgomery County. So are officers responding out into Caney or over into Deering? Maybe up into Liberty, or is this just the 911 side that's in that south half of?
So we provide communications for the southern half of Montgomery County. Our officers do not routinely respond outside the city limits for calls for service unless they are requested to do so by the KBI, Highway Patrol, Montgomery County Sheriff's Department, one of our partner agencies. Now, we have responded to Cherryville. We have responded to Caney with our special operations team. If they had a serious emergency and they contacted the Sheriff's Department or the state agency and they needed additional manpower, I would be notified, and then I would make that call and determine based on what the seriousness of the crime is and what they currently have in the field going on at the time.
I've been here in this role almost 18 months, and it took maybe a year before I realized that Sherman-Williams, kind of this big section in the middle of town, is technically in the county. And so some of the parks right across from the school are in the county. And I've heard people talk about how do we work with the county sheriff to respond to something like that that's technically in the county. So would our 911 have to ask or know that someone's in Sherman-Williams Park and go through Montgomery County Sheriff first? How does that relationship work?
So, yeah, our 911 system it's not a matter of just also asking. They can, their mapping allows them to see where the call is coming from as well. And I failed to mention that. So, yes, they would ask, where are you located at? And they would say, for example, Sherman-Williams Park. They would notify the sheriff's office, but more so than not, we go ahead and respond to that call because we're closest and we're able to assist with that. To that point, I'll give you an example. There are properties in the industrial park that are city properties and county properties, and it is very confusing, especially if you're a new police officer and you're out doing building checks at night in that area. In the past, we've had a police officer stop a vehicle in a particular parking lot and find the person under the influence and arrest that individual, only to find out that that particular parking lot was in the county and that officer was not a commissioned deputy. So therefore, that case was dismissed through court. So we run into situations like that from time to time, but it's not an everyday occurrence. It's very rare. But going back to the Sherwin-Williams Park being in the middle of Coffeyville, our officers would still go out there and provide assistance, whatever that may be. Now, if there is something to where an arrest needs to be made, something like that, then obviously we would wait until the sheriff's department gets there for that.
Okay. What is a day in the life of just your regular patrol officer? Are they out all day long trying to catch someone speeding? Are they out responding to calls? Is there a decent percentage on what a day-to-day looks like for them?
Every day is different. I think that's why it's very appealing, and it's not reporting to the same work job site and cranking out the same widgets every day. Every day, it's a different day, and you never know what's going to occur. So after the officers go through their shift change, they get into their vehicles and they start patrolling. They do respond to calls for service, but they are very proactive. And so if they see a violation, they're obviously going to enforce that, make a traffic stop, and then that traffic stop could lead to a warning, a citation. The driver could be suspended or wanted, not having insurance, so it takes many different avenues. So if it's a warning, they're given a warning and go about their way, and the officer continues doing what they're doing and responding to calls for service, or perhaps coming into the station and doing a vehicle inspection, or participating in some type of special event, or taking the opportunity to go out and try to do some proactive crime prevention. That's what they're currently doing on their free time. They're going around to area businesses and retailers, trying to promote signage that warn people to deter them from committing theft. Theft is one of our leading crimes, and it can be preventable to an extent. So we try to do what we can to deter that. The officers also report to the station to do their paperwork and required reports and investigations that they have to do. But generally, they're out in their beats, driving the streets and in their beats, trying to be seen and trying to observe, detect, and deter crime.
This is a question that I don't know that I've gotten while I've been in Coffeyville, but I think it's a standard question that people ask of law enforcement in general. Is there a quota on speeding tickets? Do you have to go out and get 10 a day? Are they aggressively searching for people that are speeding all the time? The way you sound make it seem like no, that it's in the course of duty, that there's a lot of other things going on. So
the only thing that they are truly required to do is answer their calls for service and try to be proactive. And that's why a lot of our officers enjoy working here, is because they have a lot of freedom to go out and either work traffic or sit off and watch a neighborhood where maybe some illegal activity is occurring, or going into a business and visiting with them, or, just a lot of freedom to do whatever they choose is appropriate during their time on duty.
Okay.
But quotas, no. There's no quotas. They can write as many citations as they want, or not. We do require them to have at a minimum 10 contacts per month.
Contact.
Yes. They can stop a car, they can get out in the middle of the night and talk to somebody on the street, find out what they're up to. If it's a high crime area where a lot of vehicle burglaries have occurred, we want them in those neighborhoods at night, patrolling. They see somebody standing between cars. Obviously, we want them to get out and visit with them, have what we call a field contact, a field interview.
Okay.
So those are the only required things that we have for them to do. But generally speaking, the vast majority of officers far exceed that.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned theft, so maybe we can get into crime statistics and how do we report those statistics? How do we monitor that? What's the trend been over your 34 years being here, or why you've been chief? Maybe we can talk some of that.
Sure.
Statistics.
So when the officers are called to, and I'll just walk you through the process from the beginning. So scenario would be an individual arrives home and they go up to their front door and notice that it's partially open. They push the door open and see that their living room has been ransacked. So what they should do is immediately call 911, not go in the house, call 911, advise them the address, who they are calmly, what they have, and then we will send officers to that location. The officers will go in, check the house, make sure, there's nobody in there, that it's safe, and then they will immediately begin an investigation as to what occurred. So in that scenario, somebody has kicked the door, that's criminal damage to property. The person entered the house and while in there had stolen television. So there's actually 3 crimes involved in that. You have burglary, which is the unlawful entering of a home to commit a crime. There is theft, which is the actual taking of property, unauthorized, and then the criminal damage to the door. The officer will finish that investigation out in the field and then go down to the station and begin documenting that on a report system called KIBRS, Kansas Incident-Based Reporting System. Every law enforcement agency in the state of Kansas, including the Highway Patrol and the KBI, uses the KIBRS system. The officer enters that information electronically. The supervisors review it electronically. It is then submitted to our police records, where that and all the supporting documents are then compiled and electronically submitted to the Kansas Bureau of Investigation, who is the clearinghouse for our state.
Is that in addition to anything that you need to be documenting for someone going to court for some of these reasons? Or is there 2 separate systems you have to
It's
document?
all the same. Okay. Excuse me. It's all the same. There's a rather lengthy narrative that is added to that. And so that if a suspect is apprehended and charged with a crime, that person, through due process, can have their day in court. And if they do have that day in court, the officer would take that report, supporting documents, and any physical evidence they may have or witnesses to court, and then they would go through that process. We are one leg in a triangle, the triad. You got the law enforcement, prosecutors, and defenders, and then the court. So once that is electronically submitted to the state of Kansas, again, they're the clearinghouse. That is a uniform crime report. It's submitted to the FBI, which is the clearinghouse for the entire country and all our territories. And approximately a year later, the FBI returns the data to the state, and the KBI publishes the Uniform Crime Report for the state of Kansas, and that introduction will go into the crime trends for the state for that particular year. And again, we're always a year behind.
Okay. So what's coming out the end of this year will be for 2024?
Yeah. 2024 was already published this year. And so sometime midsummer, the 2025 statistics will be released.
Okay.
And when the KBI releases that data, it's not a state secret. It's published on their website, and it goes all the way back to, I believe, 2000. You can go in and look at it by county, and each county lists all the communities in that county that have law enforcement agencies that report that data to the state. And then that breaks down the crimes that were committed in that jurisdiction.
Okay. Where do we sit in Kansas, or what are we relative from from our statistics?
I believe the last time I looked, we were somewhere in like 38th, 39th, maybe 40th, somewhere in that range, based on our crime stats.
Okay.
For Southeast Kansas, comparing Coffeyville, Parsons, Independence, and Chanute, Chanute is just barely below us, and then Independence and Parsons are the number one and number two.
Okay, so number 1 and 2 mean have higher crime rates.
Yes.
Okay.
So Parsons has the highest crime rate,
Okay.
followed by Independence, followed by Coffeyville, followed by Chanute.
Is that how it's always been? Is that kind of a 30-year trend? We've always had that ranking, or is there a lot of fluctuation?
No, it's fluctuated, and each community fluctuates, and there's a lot of variables involved in it. But at one point, we were per capita the highest crime community in the state of Kansas based on crimes per capita per 1,000 people. It was pretty significant for us, actually.
So the way you describe the process, it doesn't seem like there's any way to put your thumb on the scale. So what has been that decrease over 20 or 30 years? Or you said since 2000 the reporting's been out there, so
Yes.
26 years.
Yes.
What do you think has changed?
There are people that claim that it's because our population has decreased. And if you look at the scale for the reporting years, it's kind of like the stock market. You have high points and low points, and high points and low points. Our population has pretty much remained the same since 2015. In fact, there are more people in Coffeyville that are not documented that are here than a lot of communities. So on my argument to the folks that claim that, because we've lost population, that's why the crime rate's going down, I argue, well, on the years where it peaked, did we suddenly have an influx of people move here, 5,000, 6,000 people? No, we didn't. I believe what it is that our officers are more proactive, that we have embraced technology to improve our abilities to provide services in our operations. And there are times when it does spike. I believe those are when criminals are being released from jails and they come back and reoffend, and then we catch them and then it drops again. We spend 95% of our time dealing with the same 10% of the people. And I'll take the Pepsi challenge. I'll take the Pepsi challenge on that.
Okay.
I'm telling you. 95% of the time, we deal with the same 10% of the people.
Okay.
There are exceptions to that when you have people that travel through Coffeyville and commit a crime, but vast majority of the time, and that's true probably in most communities.
Okay. So let's dissect that a little bit. As a city manager, I've had this question, or sometimes it's just a statement to me multiple times, which is, I know that my neighbors are dealing drugs, and I've called the police, and they won't do anything about it. What's your response to that?
So I've heard that a lot. And before becoming chief of police, I was the city's drug detective. And I would have people come up to me and say, hey, so-and-so down the street is selling drugs. Go down there and get them. Well, it's not that simple. First of all, there's a thing called probable cause that we have to have, which is that fact or set of facts when viewed in the eyes of a reasonable person would cause that person to believe that a crime has, or about to be committed. And just somebody say so isn't enough. It's not even enough really to generate reasonable suspicion. So we have to begin a process. It's like building a house. You start with your land and you level it off and you build a solid footer and then your foundation, and you continue to build. We have to put in a lot of time and energy, which we don't mind, in doing surveillance, trying to determine whether or not that there actually is a crime being committed. And that can be anything from hours of surveillance at random times, trying to find people that leave that particular suspected drug house, following them, finding out information on them, running a complete check on them, possibly ending up in a custodial interview with them, trying to gather information from them, whether or not there are things going on at that house. It's very time consuming.
So you can't just kick the door in and see them
No.
in the action and arrest them immediately.
No, I've told people, how would you like it if your neighbor next door said you were selling drugs, and would you want the government to come kick your door in? Well, no. The answer is no. Of course, they say I'm not selling drugs, but those people down the street are. So then I follow that up with, well, would you be willing to wear a wire and go in there? And, well, no, I don't want to do that. And that's the thing. A lot of people don't want to be involved. They don't want to sit in the courtroom and point at somebody and say, that's the person that sold drugs to me. Because it's a small rural community and everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
So it's aggravating for us, but there are rules and procedures that we have to follow. Our prosecutors have rules that govern their conduct they have to follow. The courts have rules and laws that they have to follow. And so it is a complicated situation. And I know it's aggravating for people. It's aggravating for me. I would love to be able to do this and do that, but we have due process in this country.
So even if, back to 95% of that work is based on 10% of the population, even if you've arrested them before for the very same thing, you now have to build this new house for the next crime.
Yes.
You can't now kick the door in because, well, I just know that they do drugs.
Yes. And typically, when someone is arrested for burglary and theft, it's a non-violent crime. The courts are genuinely, well, first of all, that person is allowed to post bond. And then they go out and they reoffend, and they're caught again, and they go up to the county jail, and they are allowed to post bond, and they're released. Or the court may release them on their own recognizance because the jail is full. There's a lot of different variables involved in it. We encounter people a lot that are committing theft, that commit burglaries, that haven't even gone to court on their first case, and we've arrested them on their 7th or 8th. And unfortunately, because of due process, we don't have judge-dress system here to where we can be judge and jury out in the field. We have to follow the due process. We have to follow the law, policy, and ethics. That's our guiding principles. We have to follow law, policy, and ethics. And it's sad that we have to arrest a guy for the 8th or 9th time. And that's aggravating because then you have 8 separate incidents that the prosecutor's office is dealing with on the same individual, and it ties up the court system. And criminals know how to play the system.
Yeah.
And inevitably, at some point in time, those 8 cases are combined into one, and it's pled down. It's aggravating. It's aggravating, very aggravating for us. I hear it all the time. People will say in the public or on social media or to the media that, this guy's been a problem, and he's been a hot mess, and the police come out and they arrest him and turn around and let him go. No.
The process is letting him go.
Yes. They're allowed to, they're afforded the same opportunity as anybody else to post bond or be released by the court under their own recognizance to show up to court. And if they don't show up to court, it's failure to appear and a warrant's issued, and we start that process all over again. The system is not great. It's a good system, but it's not a perfect system, and I don't believe there is a perfect system in place.
Yeah, well, we talk about the Constitution, right? This isn't just
Exactly.
ordinances and rules that that
Exactly.
we've commenced a commission to make. This is something that's been around for a while. Because the opposite is a police state where people are fearing that local police officers are going to show up. So maybe we adjust course here and talk about that. So recently, the city, the PD, applied for what's called the 287G program through ICE immigration. And seen some press come out. We had a gentleman come and speak at a commission meeting. I know you talked to people in the community. I've talked to them. Maybe we can attempt to clear up and present some facts. So maybe you can start with, what is this 287G task force program? And then we can get into the why and what is that going to mean for our community.
Sure. So the gentleman that you referred to that came to the commission meeting to speak is a member of the Democratic Socialist Party of Kansas. They have an agenda, and that agenda is not to enforce federal law on immigration. That's what they're all about. He made some claims, made some statements, basically talking points that are out there. The 287G program allows local, county, and state law enforcement agencies to assist in the enforcement of federal law. Right now, without that MOU, I cannot enforce federal law. Only a federal law enforcement officer can enforce federal law.
So let's dissect what that means. If an officer, in the course of their duty, sees someone committing a crime, anything from speeding to drugs that we've talked about, they arrest them. You go through a process to identify that person, and you find out that they are not a citizen. You can't do anything about that.
We can do something about the crimes that were committed in our jurisdiction, the violations of local ordinance or state statute. But if the individual has a federal detainer on them and a federal officer is unable to be here to pick that individual up, we can only charge them with what we currently have.
It's kind of like what we talked about with the county and this jurisdiction thing. So federal law is outside of the jurisdiction of a local police department.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So there have been occasions that a vehicle traveling the opposite direction of a police officer running radar is speeding and then is pulled over. During that traffic stop investigation and contact, the officer learns that that individual driving that vehicle has a warrant for their arrest from the federal government, and it's through Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So what happens is we are required to call immigration and report that we are out on this traffic stop with this individual. Depending on the day of the month and the week and the hour time that stop, there may or may not be somebody responding to that call. More so than not, the closest ICE agents in the state of Kansas for us is in Wichita, 2.5 hours away. And then you still have to have somebody come in, if it's in the middle of the night, they would have to come in from home and then drive here. So then you're going to add another hour and a half to that, 2.5 hours. We can't stay out on the roadside with an individual for 2.5 hours. We can't stay out there for 30 minutes. So
You got other calls, other things going on in town. Yeah.
That individual is released. And they go down the road and no telling what to do. They could go out and commit another crime.
So with the 287 program, then what would you do in that situation?
With 287G program, that allows trained specific officers to be able to detain that person.
It's not everybody. This is very specific to a few officers.
Correct.
Who are trained.
And we are able to detain that person. We generate what we call an arrest for outside report through Kybers, and that individual would be transferred to the Montgomery County Jail. ICE would then make the arrangements to pick that individual up, transport them to their hearing, because they have a hearing after that, and from there, their status is determined by the court.
Okay.
That's what that gives us the authority to do.
Okay. If ICE shows up in our community and says, hey, Chief, we want to go knocking on some doors. We want to go to businesses. We want to go to schools. We're looking for people. Are you obligated now to participate in kicking in doors?
No. And that's why I like the 287G task force model, because there are three models. There's the jail model, the warrant officer model, and the task force model. The task force model is very flexible. You can do as much or as little as you want with that. So what Coffeyville PD won't be doing is going to the schools. We won't be going to job sites. We're not going to go pull people out of their homes and do the enforcement. We're doing this to assist with the arrests of people with detainers that we're already out on calls for service with. Now, if ICE does come to Coffeyville to do enforcement operations, we will be there to support them, just as we were before. We're always going to support our federal law enforcement partners, whether it's the United States Marshals looking for somebody that's absconded from court, whether it's the FBI looking for a member of a terrorist organization or Homeland Security, or any other federal agency that may be in our jurisdiction. We're going to assist them.
Yeah. There's this, I'm going to call it between a rock and a few hard places. As a city manager, as a chief of police, you are here to enforce law, not only local, but federal. And so we have a legal obligation there to do that, and that's why people sign on to be police officers, I would assume, is to uphold that law and that order. And then on the other side, the hard places are a variety of, what's the right word? I don't know that it's even political, but it's just a variety of opinions on what an agency should or shouldn't do. And so making that call, what we're doing is putting ourselves in a position to obey federal law, to support it at a really a minimal level. It's for those who are offenders in our community. And as far as where people feel on that spectrum here, yes, we're in between that. We're not out to just arrest anyone we can find. You mentioned earlier there's a population not on the census books in our community. We know that there's a higher population. Have you had conversations with folks that either represent or know people that represent? Do we feel like they understand and know? How do we get that message out that we're not here to just go and find people? It's those who are in the course of breaking the law.
Sure. Yes, I have. And I've explained to those individuals who I believe are leaders in their community that we're here to remove the criminal element. And the feedback that I've received is that's what we want. We don't want criminals here. They give us a bad image. We don't want that. We want to support our community. Now, I don't talk to people about the politics of it. As I mentioned earlier, we follow law, policy, and ethics. From day one, when you walk in the door, we start ingraining that into a new officer. Follow law, policy, and ethics. And that's what we do. We can't afford the luxury of siding with a two-party political system, whether it's far left, far right, in the center. We have to follow law, policy, and ethics. The 287G program, I believe, was created by Bill Clinton. It's nothing new. It's been in effect for some time. It's just that it has taken on it's at the forefront of politics and the media cycle, which feeds into the political side of it versus journalism. So that's why everybody is starting to hear about the 287G program. Out of the three programs in that I mentioned the jail model and the warrant officer. Well, the jail models are typically for counties with large jails and the staff and the nursing staff to support that. It's not applicable for us. We do have a jail here, but it is not a large jail like the county jail. It's a 72-hour holding facility jail. The warrant officer model is designed for the service of warrants and investigations inside the jail. So the task force model is what we went with, and that's what I explained to members of the community because it is flexible. And, we're not here to drag children out of the classroom or separate parents. We're here to arrest people who have a legal court-issued warrant for their arrest that has been entered into the National Crime Information Center. That's all we're doing.
Yeah.
And we will support our federal partners, regardless of who they are, whether it's Homeland Security, ICE, the FBI, Marshals, whoever.
Yeah. And regardless of which two party is in control and directing the work of those federal agencies.
And we still have to follow state law on bias-based policing. That is still into effect. I can't just go to a taco truck and start hassling the guys about their immigration status. I have to have probable cause.
Yeah. It's not based on skin color. It's not based on the language. It's not based on any of those. And those are protected classes, whether it's in employment, whether it's in enforcing the law,
Right.
interaction with people on the street.
And a lot of people don't understand also that due process is not something that is just afforded to U.S. citizens. If you come here on vacation from Argentina, you're allowed, and if you get in trouble, you're allowed the same protections of the Constitution as anybody else in the country. And if you come here illegally, you are still afforded those same due process measures that are outlined in the Constitution.
Yeah. How do we or how should we encourage within our community a level of peacemaking, of getting along with each other? Again, we're not looking for groups of people. It's those who are breaking the law. And so we go back to these party systems and a variety of opinions. I've seen on Facebook, when there have been protests, and then there's an opposite reaction to that. We have a large, I think it's called the Hispanic Cultural Celebration that didn't happen this last year for a variety of reasons, I'm sure. And we talked to the organizers of that event. And when I spoke to them, I encouraged them to have that celebration and celebrate heritage. Again, it's not within breaking the law. So we're a community here. These people are going to our schools and our churches and are shopping next to you that are not lawbreakers. How do we get around that? And that's maybe a larger question, not just Coffeyville, but our country right now.
I think everybody needs to take a deep breath. Maybe get off social media.
Yeah.
I think that would help a lot.
Yeah.
I do.
Well, wrap up here. A few more questions. First, let's talk about some of the programs that PD has coming up here in, I guess, December.
Yeah.
Fill a Cruiser.
Yeah. Fill a Cruiser and Shop with a Cop. Both have been in existence for some time.
Okay.
Very good programs.
What does Fill a Cruiser mean? How can people participate in that or Shop with a Cop? What are we out trying to achieve?
So, going back, I'll tell you from the beginning. When I was a detective working narcotics, while serving search warrants in drug homes, we were running across a lot of children, especially during the holidays, that had nothing. Didn't even have a bed. So I and some other officers pooled some money together, and we helped out some children. We decided to do that again the following year, and that was our very first year of doing that was 2015 officially. We called it Fill a Cruiser, and I think we parked at Family Dollar and at the time Country Mart, soliciting some food and toys and things of that nature to help 10. We picked the number 10 kids at the time that we had identified, and we provided that to those children. Very low key, we weren't trying to draw attention to their situation. And then my wife got involved and reached out, and we partnered with the school district because they know the children that need it the most. And we started that process more organized in 2016, 2017, and it went from just a handful of kids to last year we had 196, I believe.
Wow.
And we provide a full Christmas. And what I mean by that is we're not giving out a toy or 2 or 3 toys and a shirt or anything like that. We provide a lot of food, a lot of toys, a lot of clothing, basic necessity stuff. When we hand out the questionnaire to the counselors that they provide to the children that they believe that they've identified, it's sad that the things that we're getting back are, I'd like to have a pair of shoes without holes in the bottom of them. Could I get a blanket because I sleep on the floor and it would help keep me warm? One year we had a child ask for electricity, food. They're not asking for PlayStations. They're not asking for Nike shoes or anything like that. They're asking for toothbrush, toothpaste, deodorant, basic necessities a lot of us take for granted. So we just, we're doing our 10th year of Fill a Cruiser. Officers, I will go out to local retail businesses and stand. I think it was 2020, the fire department joined us, partnered with us, and so the police and fire department will go out and stand at businesses and retailers and solicit donations based on the needs that were identified by our partners in the school district. And then those collected items, we used to take them to the police department in the training room, and that's a very large room. We outgrew it, and Coffeyville Reawakening has generously allowed us to take over their building for most of December. And we put those collected items in there, and we also solicit businesses and industries for cash donations so that we can try to purchase anything that is not identified or that is not listed. Let me say that again because I am completely screwing that up. We try to purchase things that aren't donated to us, so that are identified on the list. So if somebody wants art supplies or they need pencils and things like that, and they're not donated, then we can go in, or a certain shoe size or shirt size, then we can go back and purchase with cash those particular specific items for that child. And that's 50% of it, really. I mean, people are really good and generous about donating to us, but there are times when children need a coat a certain size or shoes a certain size or a specific kind of makeup. There's been some asking for medication or over-the-counter medications and things like that because they don't have access to that at home. Laundry detergent was asked for so they can wash their clothes so they don't get teased at school for smelling.
Yeah.
And then that is all organized, and then we used to deliver it to the homes, but it got so big we were tying up police cars and fire trucks for hours, and calls for service were coming in. So now we changed up last year to where we asked those folks to come and pick them up, and it worked out really well for us. Brought a lot of people into the downtown area, and it's very rewarding to be able to help them. And again, we're not giving one or two toys or one or two shirts or a small box of food. We're really taking care of them the best we can.
Yeah.
With the donations that we have. And I suspect the need will be even greater this year, and we'll probably have over 200, I'm sure.
When in December does this happen? How do people come and donate or give?
So we will be set up on December 6th from 10 to 2 out at Dollar General. Okay. And then on Saturday, December 13th, the police and fire department will be set up at Walmart from 10 to 5, I believe, okay. Soliciting donations. And I have already sent out letters to a lot of our community members and businesses and industries seeking donations. When they do, I keep track of that, and then I send them a thank you letter with that donation amount on there. We are not a nonprofit. We're not a for-profit organization, so with that letter, then they can then take that and use that to help with their tax write-off.
Okay.
Shop with a Cop has been around since the 90s. It's really grown. It's probably the largest I would say that it's probably largest in Kansas, the number of kids that we take care of. Busloads and busloads of children. Griffin Walker has been phenomenal in organizing
Boys and Girls
that.
Club leads that out.
Yep. And, if there are organizations or people that want to get involved, we've asked for help from not just law enforcement and emergency services, but like the Legion Riders have been out there. Organizations come in and help. We could certainly use it because, I don't like going to Walmart. I certainly don't go, I'm not a good shopper. I don't like to shop. But after about 4 hours of running around on your feet start to really start. So any help that I can get.
Yeah, appreciate it.
You've done it yourself.
Yeah,
so
that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's good to see the kids. They have a good time.
Yeah, awesome. Well, to wrap it up, any final thoughts? Are there any misconceptions out there you want to address, or anything that you would encourage our residents to do to either support or just be vigilant for their own safety?
Well, it is said that the citizens are the police, and the police are the citizens. And our citizens of this town could help us by taking some proactive measures to deter crime. And the easiest, I say this all the time, criminals are opportunists. So if your neighborhood is dark, they're going to come in that dark neighborhood versus a neighborhood that's well lit. And simply turning your porch light on at night or your back porch light on is amazing. It sounds silly, but it actually deters crime. People will move on. Locking your car doors, making sure your car doors are locked. Most of the people that I have interviewed, criminals, they will just walk up and down the street shaking car doors until they open. And then they get inside that car and find anything of value. And sometimes it's just change in the cup holder. And then misperception. Our officers generally care. They live I think over 95% of our officers live inside the city limits of Coffeyville. This is their community. They want to make Coffeyville safe. They want to make it better. There are a lot of other communities they could go to, but they choose to work here. And so they want to make a difference. And they are following law, policy, and ethics. They're not going to violate it. And people say they do, but they don't. They want to make a difference here, and they want to make Coffeyville better. And the statistics are showing that they are. And that is why we embrace technology. That is why we try new things to try to help us improve our operations and our abilities to solve crimes. So we, compared to a lot of agencies, are further ahead than people generally realize in being proactive.
Well, in my role, I've got to kind of peek behind the curtain here, obviously working with you and in the department there. And I'm just more and more surprised at that level of professionalism, the high expectations for standards. Our police officers, anyone within the police department is held to a higher standard than most departments here. And I think that's part and parcel because it's, those upholding a law. But I've seen their work. I've seen their work in high stress situations, not obviously as close as you have, but I'm in awe by the level of service that from the top to bottom in the police station, dispatchers and records, detectives, our patrol officers and the leadership there. So please pass on our thanks to them. I hope people in the community recognize that high standard and that these are the folks there to keeping us safe and living in a place that we want. So thank you, Chief Bromley, for coming. Appreciate your time. Everyone, this has been another episode of A Cup of Coffeyville. Try to fill your cup with everything from Coffeyville. Please like, share, pass it on. We want to get this information out to as many people as possible, and join us next time.